Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. You're watching Discussion Today with me, Tina Jha. On the show today, we are going to touch upon a very interesting and a significant topic, the value of a tree. A tree's monetary worth is its age multiplied by 74,500 rupees, according to an expert committee appointed by the Supreme Court of India. Now, in its report, the 5-member expert committee has said that a heritage tree with a lifespan of well over 100 years could be valued at more than 1 crore rupees, and that the monetary value of a project for which hundreds of trees are cut is sometimes far less than the economic and environmental worth of the felled trees. So before we get on to the discussion with experts on the program today, let me explain to you the context of this report by the expert committee. In January 2020, the Supreme Court had set up an expert committee to suggest an alternative to felling of over 350 trees for construction of railway overbridges and also widening of the National Highway 112 along with the Indo-Bangladesh border in West Bengal. The committee was tasked with determining the economic value of these trees based on the cost of oxygen that they release and other benefits to the environment. The expert committee has now submitted its report setting a guideline for the first time in India on the valuation of trees. So this is what we are going to discuss in detail today with a panel of experts. And for this, we are joined by Mr. Ashok Pai. He is a former Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, Uttarakhand. And we also have with us Dr. Shamli Singh, Assistant Professor, Center for Environment and Climate Change, IIPA. Welcome to both my guests on this edition of Discussion Today. Dr. Shamli Singh, let me begin the program today with you. So for the first time, the valuation of trees has been done by a committee appointed by the Supreme Court of India. Let's begin with your views on the valuation that's been done, as per which a tree's monetary worth is its age multiplied by 74,500 rupees.
Yes, as you've rightly pointed out, that under the Setu Bharatmala project, which is under the central scheme, and wherein a stretch of 59 kilometers, which comes under the West Bengal government, trees of around approximately 356 trees need to be cut down, and out of that, around 50 trees have already been felled down. And when the valuation of the same is being done, it is seen that to a tune of around 220 crore rupees is the worth of those trees if you take the total cost of the ecosystem services they provide in terms of providing oxygen, in terms of supporting the animal, that includes the human being ratio. And in fact, if you look at the total amount of funding that is attributed to this stretch of 59 kilometers, and the fund which is allocated is around approximately 500 crores. So if the amount of 220 crores is not a negligible amount, that has to be seen into worth, and it has to be taken into consideration. And as rightly pointed out by the committee, that yes, the valuation of the same needs to be seen in that light.
Yes. Okay. So we'll come and understand, the feasibility going forward of this recommendation that the committee has made. But first, Mr. Pai, with your opinion on how the valuation has been done, 74,500 rupees per year for a tree, and for heritage trees, well over 100 years, it could be valued at more than 1 crore rupees. Now, your perspective on how the valuation has been done. Is it undervalued? Is it overvalued? What's your take?
This has a context, as you pointed out, that whenever you take up an developmental project, the environmental impact assessment is being done. And this is done for the reason that the planning process, which is there for this developmental project, remains a sustainable one, which reduces the adverse impact of the environment on the because of the developmental projects undertaken in that area. In this context, traditionally, way back, say 50 years ago, the cost-benefit analysis used to take just the timber value of the trees. As the science grew and the awareness increased amongst the policymakers and the lawmakers, the different other perspectives which were not taken into consideration, the cost-benefit analysis were brought in. That's wherein the question of oxygen produced by the trees, carbon sequestered by them, the carbon stored by them, because both the carbon has a implication, because the carbon dioxide which is there in the atmosphere, it is a greenhouse gas. It hastens the climate change process, and storage of that one after the carbon is sequestered is equally important, so that the total amount of carbon which is there outside this thing is contained. These are not the only services which are taken into account, or the values while calculating the values, because there are various range of services provided by a tree. For example, the micronutrient, the soil fertility, checking of soil erosion, support to the range of microbial life in the soil and in and around it, the wildlife habitat the tree produces, and it acts as a sound barrier, it acts as a wind barrier, it helps in retention of water, recycling of nutrients, and helps in cooling down the temperature, the shade, because of which, as well as the moisture which is there in the tree. If you consider all the services which are tangible as well as intangible, the valuation which is there in front of the Honorable Apex Court is a bit meager, because but there has to be some sort of a pragmatism, and realistically one has to take into consideration. It cannot be so that when you factor in the cost benefit analysis of a project, the cost of replacement of even a roadside tree which is planted, not part of any forest ecosystem, cannot be equated to the one which is there in the forest ecosystem, or a unique forest which is where the project is supposed to be passing through. So there are various factors which needs to be taken into account, and to this extent, the valuation of 74,500 per year and around 75 lakhs per its 100 years life appears a reasonable one. But if you consider a tree like people, Ficus religiosa, in the 50-year time, it is a 6-ton tree which is virtually valued more than 3.5 crores. So those are the kind of factors which come in when you do the valuation. But there has to be sort of a realistic assessment of the situation, keeping in mind whether that is part of a unique ecosystem, whether the tree species is an endangered one, or those kind of factors need to be counted. And I'm sure those things would go in when ultimately the Apex Court decides on the matter.
That's right.
This is the entire environmental impact assessment, which has been supposed to be amended or revisited by the Ministry of Environment and Forest. Perhaps the context has been set right, and I'm sure there would be a very pragmatic and a scientific approach to the entire process of removal of trees, and for the cause of developmental requirements of the nation and the society.
Dr. Singh, that, if we look at it realistically, and if this valuation of trees, this amount is added to the cost of the development project, how feasible is it going to be for the central government? Because that way, if we calculate, the cost of development projects is going to run into crores of rupees. And this, in a way, will be very, it won't be feasible for the government in the long run.
Yeah, I totally agree with your point, but I want to add to the point which has been raised by Dr. Pai, that if you talk of the valuation, though we have to adopt to a pragmatic approach, but if you look at the valuation which was done for the first time in the history of India way back in 1979 by an Indian biologist, That time itself, he had valued the value of the tree to be around 1.5 crores, which was around $19,000 approximately at that time. So if you look at that figure in this context, it itself is very meager. But as you have rightly pointed out, that since we have to come up and keep the business running, we have to look at the bigger picture in mind. And if we also collaborate the issue of the Go East policy, because in this stretch of the one which is being discussed of NH 112, that is NH 112, there is a 59-kilometer stretch which is connecting Bangladesh and Myanmar, which is a part of the Go East policy. So if you look at the bigger angle, the business that would increase in the longer run. So to an extent, yes, this can be accommodated, but in the same breath, I would like to add that just because we have deforested, or we've cut a few trees, which is not few, actually it runs into thousands, some 4,000 trees would be cut in widening the roads to achieve this Go East policy widening corridor. So similarly, the similar sort of plantation should be done, but assuming that afforestation or compensatory forestation, which is being done these days, so as to equate a heritage tree to maybe say 5 saplings or 10 saplings, is not going to solve the problem, because the ecosystem services which are being provided by these trees, which are matured, which are seasoned enough, and the amount of oxygen they release, and the amount of carbon they have already stored, because India is one of the few nations which have actually being figuring, and we've placed ourselves right in achieving the climate ambitions which we have set for ourselves. So therein also we'll have to look into the total accountability of meeting the carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas emissions reduction standards which we have set for ourselves. So compensatory forestry should be done, but at the same time we have to see that enough number of trees are planted in compensation of the trees which are being felled. So there has to be a revisit on the policy issues of these, and of course we have to develop, because with this pandemic also in our economy is already on a downturn. So in order to revamp, we have to plunge in somewhere, but we have to see that the gaps and the fillers are correct and properly placed.
Okay. So, Mr. Pai, when Dr. Singh says that there has to be a revisit in the policy, what is the solution then? Because the recommendation clearly is sort of creating a conflict between development and maintaining a balance between the development projects and environment. So, what then is the solution? Normally, what we see is for development projects, when trees are felled, an equal number or maybe more number of saplings are planted elsewhere to sort of strike a balance. But if this is also insufficient, what then is the solution according to you?
Yeah, in fact, what we need to remember is that when we talk about the environmental impact assessment, it is done primarily to see whether the project is environmentally or ecologically sustainable or not as well. If it is environmentally sustainable or ecologically sustainable, then project that cannot be given a green signal. That again depends on various factors. For example, as I said, that whether the project which is like the road which passes through a particular forest area, whether it's a unique forest ecosystem, whether it is going to cause immense damage to the biodiversity of that area, whether there are only endemic species in those forest areas, or it is a part of the some of the plantations which have been carried out in that area. So those are the factors which normally are borne and kept in mind. But as at the end of the day, what remains important is that when you are thinking of creating a strategic assets which connects the 3 international sort of boundaries, and where securing as well as the economic interest of the nations and the societies of these countries are involved, then you have to look it in a slightly different manner. If that area or that alignment which has been planned for widening or construction of a road or any other infrastructure, is going to be damaged. Then because then one can think of getting the realignment of the project. Otherwise, normally these, for example, the net present value, which is being used as a standard process of valuation since the Forest Conservation Act came in since 1980, that counted value of the revenues which would have been given in terms of those services and the direct benefits of that one. Those can be linked with the present day cost index or the wholesale price index, WPI sort of a thing. Even going by that standard, for example, if I remember correctly, the class 1 forest, the NPV is around 11 lakhs per hectare. And if you add the WPI, that's going to increase it by almost 50%. But there are other ways of calculating this one, as recommended by the Indian Institute of Forest Management at Bhopal, which has categorized the various types of forests in the country and given the sort of a sort of formula by which you can do the valuation. But as I said, the more realistic and doable sort of a thing, given the strategic nature of the project, which is key to the decision making, then linking it with the wholesale price index would be much more pragmatic way, rather than adding in all the intangible the values attributable to the forest area through which this infrastructure project is running. Would be more prudent way of dealing the things. Considering this one, yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about alternate ways, Dr. Singh, that one recommendation that the Supreme Court appointed committee has made, that in case of very, very important high cost projects, if the trees must be removed, the first endeavor should be to relocate them, making use of modern technology. So how feasible is this going to be, and what kind of problems could obviously be in with regard to the environment? Because obviously if you relocate the trees, there could be problems with adaptation, or the tree and the soil, maybe they're not able to adapt well. Could these be the problems going ahead?
Yeah, of course. Though the suggestion or solution given by the apex body is to an extent viable, but if you look at the bigger picture or the larger scenario of the same, if we uproot a tree which is a heritage tree, which is already the roots are deep rooted, and by using earth movers we are relocating an entire. So we should not consider it only as a tree. It is an entire ecosystem which has its own microflora, microfauna in it. And all that ecosystem is being removed from, you are relocating it from one place and you are taking it to another place. So even if, let's say, if we assume that the tree is able to adapt and acclimatize itself in the new situation, into the new surrounding, first important question would be how and where would you find place to accommodate that huge tree? Second, let's say, fortunately, if you do get a space of relocating that tree, what about the other species who are a home to the tree is a home to those species? So how well they would be able to acclimatize themselves in the new surrounding? And it is not only the tree and the branches and the trunk which is important and which is giving shelter to a number of other birds and butterflies and other, but then there are other small creatures which are there in the surrounding soil. So what will happen to them? How are you looking at the aspect of the micro biodiversity which is associated with the tree? How well they will be able to establish themselves? These are all which require deeper insights, and they are actually very, very difficult to quantify, because we might not be able to perceive the functions which they are giving and from the functions from which is being derived by the services of the same. But at the same time, I think that it is easier to say than being done. So relocating a tree would definitely be good, rather than felling it down and cutting it in totality. But yes, it has its own challenges and issues that have to be taken care of.
That's right. Mr. Pai, relocating trees with the use of modern technology, in that aspect, how equipped are we? How good is the idea? And how sustainable as well?
Well, I mean, as of now, I would say, it's a bit of a romanticization for the simple reason that we don't have that kind of a technology, and keeping in mind the costs involved in transplanting a fully grown tree, and the chances of its dying are pretty high because we don't have a technology by which we say that all the transplantation, despite the best efforts, they survive. Even 30% may be the success rate of survival rate of these trees. That's why the contrarian view comes in, that when you are when you cannot realign that project, when the tree needs to be felled, perhaps in that place you can replant 10 or 15 in a degraded area and regenerate or reforest, revive that ecosystem. That would be a more prudent approach, rather than incurring so much of expenditure in terms of the cost and in terms of technology also. To me, it appears that the former one, that is planting X number of trees in view of one tree felled, that is how it is to be looked into. But as I said, that it is not the question of cutting one single tree. As I said, that if it is a tree planted along the roadside, rather than infrastructure project passing through a forest ecosystem, the valuation and the decision making becomes different. Here, it's much more simpler. You can replace or replant that one. Whereas in the forestry ecosystem, because of the complexities through which over millions of years the ecosystem has evolved, the cost which are not apportioned in the cost-benefit analysis of a project are huge ones, and that's why the simpler the decision making is with regard to felling a few trees along the roadside for the widening, rather than creating a new infrastructure in a good forestry ecosystem. To me, it appears. And as I said, that yes, planting more number of trees in view of one felled tree is a doable thing. Not to say that you should not transplant. Yes, wherever it is feasible, given the cost as well as the technological know-how we have, perhaps we can go ahead with them. And National Highway Authorities is trying to replant in many places this effort, but the success rate, as I am aware, is not very high. And hence, I feel that the pragmatic approach is planting more number of trees. It need not be a 1 year sapling. It could be 5-6 year old sapling, so that 15 years that area gets fully green and forested, to so to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that point having been said, Dr. Shamli Singh, what then is the best way forward so that, development and conservation of the environment go hand in hand?
Yeah, so we can have 2-3 alternates to the same. First best option would be to, in case if it is possible, to realign the project and to see for alternate methods. Also, we have been in the process of thinking. We are to an extent, we only look at the roadways as the method or mode of expansion. We have, as far as India is concerned, there is yet so much to be done in case of if we can develop and come up with waterways. Why not through waterways we can develop them as an alternate mode of transportation, which would be much faster, which would be much, though there would be a lot of infrastructure involved in that also, but that will surely not be at the cost of felling down of the trees. We have a lot of seaways also which can be explored, though in this context we cannot rely on seaway because unfortunately there is no sea here. So we can dwell upon the waterways, and wherever possible, the alignment of the trees should be, the tree cover should be counted and seen that if a small, derouting or detouring of the project activities, if that can be realigned and that can be leading to lesser number of felling of trees, if that could be adopted, I think that would be a better approach.
Dr. Pai, one quick comment from you on, an interesting suggestion that has been made by Dr. Singh and that has also been mentioned in the Supreme Court committee is to explore alternatives like using existing waterways and railway lines to facilitate traffic and transport infrastructure. But looking at the huge population that our country has, how feasible is this suggestion? How feasible is this idea going forward?
Unfortunately, the inland waterways was a project. It's a project taken up a long time back during the previous NDA regime, and it hasn't really taken off because of the minimum depth required throughout the season to run a boat in that one. Similarly, when you think of ocean, it is not that the having huge ships and using that as a mode of transport would not cause any environmental damage. There are you keep hearing every day in and out that the amount of damage caused the coral reef, the oil spillage, or the accidents happening, this thing, and causing irreparable damage to the ocean or the marine ecosystem. It's a story which is underreported, I would say, and that causes equally as much damage. But not to say that those options should not be explored. I don't subscribe to that one. Yes, still efforts are being made to revive the inland waterways, and that is certainly a good way of tackling it with it. And more importantly, I would say the emphasis of the developmental infrastructure should be for mass transportation rather than encouraging individual vehicles sort of a thing, for the simple reason mass transport is environmentally and economically more sustainable rather than having an individual automobile. And while doing so, yes, exploring all the three options of air, water, and land.
That's right.
And which is the railways as well as the roadways, those should be factored in, and that is how, when you make a decision, you explore the feasibility, which is a economically, environmentally sound or the feasible option amongst these three, or combination of these things. Then you go ahead accordingly, and I feel that should be the way, and I'm sure the Apex Court would further dwell on this one and
absolutely. So quite a couple of suggestions made by our distinguished panelists on how to strike a balance between conservation and development as well. Thank you to both of you for joining us on the show and sharing your perspective with us on the subject. Pleasure having you on the program. So with that, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of Discussion Today. Just in case you missed the television broadcast of our program, let me remind you, you can also watch it on YouTube, and you can send us your feedback and suggestions as well. Thank you very much for your time.